So I was browsing Facebook and somebody said that an apt synopsis for The Mandalorian is it's about a man looking around trying to find a preschool for his child before he goes back to work. And I was like, you know what? That's facts. So hello again. It is another week. Happy Friday, TGIF, and we are here for another spoiler recap of The Mandalorian. This is chapter 14 entitled The Tragedy. Again, I am talking full spoilers for this episode. So if you haven't seen chapter 14 yet of The Mandalorian, go and watch it and then come back here for this recap. This recap is going to be a little different than my other recaps. Instead of me just talking about the episode, I'm going to speed through it a little bit because there's something specifically about this episode that I kind of want to talk about, but I'll get to that later. But first, if you can, please do me a favor and hit that like button for this video to really help with the YouTube algorithm, and not only recommending this video to other people, but also my channel in general so I can continue to grow this channel. Thank you so much. And now, about this episode. So yeah, this episode opens with the Mandalorian arriving on the planet of Tython, and I had to look this up because I didn't really know, but supposedly the significance of Tython is it's a planet that's very important to the Jedi origins, and there's actually a comic book as part of the non-canon extended universe that's basically, I think it's like called The Dawn of the Jedi or something like that, and it takes place strictly on Tython. So this is once again more of Lucasfilm and specifically The Mandalorian pulling from that expanded universe Star Wars legend lore. And so they arrive on Tython, they go to the top of the mountain peak that Ahsoka was talking about, and he puts Grogu on top of the mountain. And in a moment that kind of reminded me of season 6 episode 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer when Willow was trying to summon to bring Buffy back to life. I'm going to try to see if I can edit in a photo of that moment in here. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can find it. But that moment with Grogu sitting on top the stone and then all this like Jedi energy was surrounding him, that's the first thing I thought about. I was like, oh, it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Of course, like every reference that I think of just instantly reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as if Buffy was the thing that originally came up with these concepts. But in my mind, it is. And while Baby Yoda is meditating and using the Force to call out to another Jedi, we see Boba Fett and Fenric Ferris. I can't remember her name, but basically the character that Ming-Na Wen plays, it's Fenric Ferris. It starts with an F. They've been tracking the Mandalorian, and Boba Fett wants his armor back. And this whole time I was like, considering we've seen Boba Fett really since the first season, and also he's been following the Mandalorian since the first season, and we saw him following the Mandalorian in the second season, why did he wait till now to confront the Mandalorian? Then also, if he knew that Cobb Vanth had his armor, why didn't he go get it back from Cobb Vanth? Especially based on what we saw in this episode and how badass Boba Fett still is, even in his advanced age. And that's really what this episode was about. This episode was to showcase how badass Boba Fett is, and probably to get you excited about his spinoff series that was just recently announced. And I mean, based on this one episode, I gotta say, I am a little bit more excited about a solo Boba Fett series, even though I'm still just like, well, isn't The Mandalorian supposed to be that Boba Fett series? And I thought the reason that they announced a Mandalorian series is because they couldn't do Boba Fett. This show is Boba Fett without it being Boba Fett. And I felt like I had to say that and get that out the way, because I remember in one of my earlier Mandalorian reviews when it was first announced that they were going to do a Boba Fett series, I was just like, why? Like, I'm not really excited about that. But I mean, after this episode, I was like, okay, maybe I am a little bit more curious. But at the same time, I still just like, this is Star Wars. Give me Jedi. I want to see more Jedi, or if not Jedi, Force-sensitive people in this world. Like, I'm all about the space wizards and the magic and the Force. But anyway, so yeah, this episode was just jam-packed full of action with Fenric Ferris. I'm gonna just say Ming-Na Wen's character because I can't think of the person's name. I should probably look it up, but whatever. But Ming-Na Wen and Boba Fett, they're taking out these stormtroopers left and right. And this was a great action scene. This episode was actually directed by Robert Rodriguez, who actually was the one that directed Alita Battle Angel. And I really enjoyed enjoyed that movie, and I thought the action sequences and just the overall movie itself was just very good, and I was really looking forward to a sequel, but it didn't make as much money as they were hoping, so I'm not sure if Alita Battle Angel is going to get a sequel. I hope it does. But yeah, the action in this episode was great, especially once you got to see Boba Fett in action, and I feel like this is probably the most gruesome we've ever seen Star Wars go, without obviously them showing blood. But the way Boba Fett like destroyed the stormtroopers, like cracked their armor, stabbed them in the chest, and just went ham on those stormtroopers, I don't think I've ever seen that level of just like visceral death in Star Wars since maybe like Rogue One, with spoilers for the end of Rogue One, that final scene with Vader. I think that's probably the most like terrifying we've seen with Star Wars, aside from this moment. But despite the assistance of Boba Fett and Ming-Na Wen's character, the Mandalorian couldn't save Grogu, and Grogu ended up getting captured by Moff Gideon and his Dark Troopers. And that's one thing I will say regarding this episode that I was a little bit disappointed about. Like, we finally got the introduction to the Dark Troopers, and they didn't really do anything. All they did was grab Grogu and then dip, but I would like to have seen them maybe fight and see maybe perhaps how different or how much more powerful they are compared to regular stormtroopers. But either way, no! Grogu is gone. Grogu is taken by the Empire. Oh, we got to get him back. Don't worry. I'm keeping my Grogu. My Grogu is protected. He won't be taken by Moff Gideon. But yeah, the episode ends with the Mandalorian going back to Navarro to talk to Cara Dune's character, who's now an official officer with the New Republic, and he wants to break out Bill Burr's character that we saw last season because he wants his help to get Grogu back. And I really enjoyed this episode. Like, this episode was great, and it's really, again, just continuing to show how great Star Wars is in televised form as opposed to in the movies. And really, honestly, like shows like the Clone Wars, and granted, I haven't seen Rebels, but I've heard really good things about Rebels, and then you get the Mandalorian. It's just showing that these television properties are far exceeding what we're getting from the movies. And why I think going forward, like I mentioned before, like I feel like they need to just retcon out of existence those new movies, the new trilogy, and just build on the canon of Star Wars starting from the Mandalorian on forward. And honestly, I feel like Dave Filoni, like, yes, Kathleen Kennedy's probably a great businesswoman, so yeah, keep her in charge of the business aspect of Lucasfilm, but I think in terms of all the creative decisions, I think Dave Filoni needs to be like the head of all creative decisions regarding the Star Wars properties, because he as a person that's kind of the George Lucas protege, he knows this world. He's passionate about Star Wars, and pretty much everything that he touches with regards to Star Wars is gold. But yeah, this episode and last week's episode are my two favorite episodes of season 2 so far, and I would say this episode of The Mandalorian is a blockbuster. Now, the thing that I actually wanted to get into regarding this episode, just like Ahsoka Tano said last week's episode, there aren't really that many Jedi left. So who exactly did Grogu call out to when he used the Force on that rock in Tython? And I wanted to kind of go over the Jedi that at least we know of that are still alive in this world after the collapse of the Empire, and probably make some predictions or guesses of who it could possibly be, because again, it could only be but these people unless they just make up somebody else that we don't know of that's still alive. And so let's get the obvious two choices out of the way of who we know of. We know, since this show takes place after Return of the Jedi, we know Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa are both still alive. And so how cool would it be if we see a young Luke Skywalker show up? And considering this is Lucasfilm, considering this is also a property owned by Disney, Mandalorian is on Disney Plus, and Sebastian Stan is also a member of the MCU, which is also owned by Disney, how cool would it be if Sebastian Stan showed up on this series as a young Luke Skywalker? The internet is already blazing how much Sebastian Stan and Mark Hamill look so much alike, and even Mark Hamill co-signed this on Twitter. So I'm like, the writing is almost on the wall for Sebastian Stan to show up as Luke Skywalker. Now granted, Sebastian Stan is like 6 foot something and Mark Hamill is like 5 something, so in terms of height difference, it'll be a big difference in height in terms of Sebastian Stan's Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker. But so what? I would love to see Sebastian Stan show up as Luke Skywalker in this property. But then again, considering how big of characters Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa are, they might not want to go that route. So what other Jedi are alive besides these two? And then also Leia's technically not a Jedi yet, even though she can use the Force. But we do know from the new trilogy, which I hope they retcon out of existence, but also even from the extended universe, that Luke does train Leia to become a full-fledged Jedi. But who else is out there? We know Ahsoka Tano is out there, but we could take her out because Ahsoka already said that she's not going to train Grogu. So who else is left? Well, going more into that, especially with Ahsoka Tano, we also know Star Wars Rebels is also canon. And so in Star Wars Rebels, there's the character of Ezra. And as far as we know, Ezra is still alive. And considering Ahsoka Tano did mention Admiral Thrawn, and like I said, I haven't seen Rebels, so I don't really know how the show ended, but I do know that Ezra is still alive, and so I don't necessarily know where Ezra is, if he's lost in space or if he's out there just in hiding, or I don't know what's going on with Ezra, but we know he's out there somewhere. So could that character potentially show up in The Mandalorian? And we already know that they've been pulling characters from the Clone Wars and Rebels into The Mandalorian, like Admiral Thrawn or like Bo-Katan. So we already know when they're not averse to bringing these Clone Wars and Rebels characters to live action. So could Ezra potentially be the Jedi that is called to the attention of Grogu and could potentially help the Mandalorian get Grogu from Moff Gideon? And funny enough, as I'm going through these choices, in some ways it kind of destroys the canon of the original Star Wars trilogy when Luke goes to Dagobah and trains with Yoda, and right before Yoda dies, he says to Luke, "When gone I am, the last of the Jedi you will be." And yet here I am naming all these Jedi that are still alive after the return of the Jedi. So it's like, was Yoda lying, or because of his old age, maybe he has some Alzheimer's and he couldn't use the Force as good as he used to? I don't know, but either way, I'm not against it. I know some people are upset because there are other Jedi still alive in this universe because it makes Yoda's statement less impactful, but I don't have a problem with it. But anyway, we know other two Jedi that are still alive and out there are from the Star Wars video game, Star Wars Jedi: The Fallen Order, and they did say those video games are canon to the Star Wars universe, and based on the first game, based on what we know from the game, the characters of Cal Kestis and Sarah Junda are still alive. And based on the video game Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, those games take place when Vader and Palpatine are still alive. And so if you get to The Mandalorian, Cal would be much older. Cal would be way more trained within the Force than he was in the first game. And it would actually work if they get the actor that played Cal Kestis, Cameron Monaghan, because Cameron Monaghan is almost 30 years old, and that would work for the timeline between the first game of Jedi Fallen Order and now with The Mandalorian. And so with this being years later, it could work that Cal Kestis is perhaps still in hiding, and then he gets the beacon, or he gets the signal that he feels Grogu calling out with the Force, and now we get a live action version of Cal Kestis. And then this will be the first time, at least to my knowledge, that a character that originated from a Star Wars video game property shows up in live action. And the same goes for Sarah Junda, who was played by Deborah Wilson. And if she shows up, it'll be one of the first times that you actually get to see a black woman as a Jedi in the Star Wars universe. And I get, you could kind of say the same thing about Rosario Dawson because she's Afro-Latina and she's playing Ahsoka Tano. So technically Ahsoka Tano is the first black Jedi, but she's not, because Rosario Dawson isn't actually playing a human-looking person that's a Jedi. She's playing an alien. She's playing a Targuta. I think that's how you say it. So she's not really a black woman. And then this is a pick that I'm just going to throw out there that could potentially happen. That, of course, I'm not saying that it's really going to happen, but it's just an idea that I have thrown out there that I've just been thinking about when Ahsoka Tano said there aren't that many Jedi left. And so you're wondering, well, who could Grogu call out to? Well, ever since the end of Revenge of the Sith, Samuel L. Jackson has been saying and calling forever, saying that Mace Windu is still alive out there. And even George Lucas has kind of co-signed Samuel L. Jackson's statement. It was like, yeah, Mace Windu could possibly be alive out there. And so I'm like, and then Samuel L. Jackson has been saying for the longest time that he would love to come back as Mace Windu in Star Wars. Well, again, Disney property. We know that Nick Fury is about to get a solo series on Disney Plus. Well, before that happens, what if an older, grizzled Mace Windu shows up in The Mandalorian? And I'm just like, how cool would that be if we see one of the most powerful Jedi outside of Yoda show up in The Mandalorian? Then you get another black Jedi, and you kind of get to see Mace Windu almost kind of redeem himself in the sense sense that he gets to help take out Moff Gideon and the rest of the last remnants of the Empire and help train Grogu, who's basically the same species as his mentor, Yoda. And I believe there's one more Jedi, or he's not really a Jedi. I know there's one more Force sensitive that's still out there that they wrote in a canon book called Force Sensitive. I think the character's name is Nak, N-A-Q. But like I said, he's not a Jedi, he's just Force sensitive. But I don't really know that much about that character, and I feel like if that character ends up being the one that shows up, I don't know if people would be all that excited about that character, because that character isn't as popular as all the other ones that I mentioned. But I think that's the thing that gets me the most excited about this episode, because I'm just like, who's gonna show up? Who's gonna help save Grogu? And I'm pretty sure they're not gonna show up until the season finale, which I guess we only have 2 more episodes left. But I'm just like, oh, so many possibilities. But the question is, what did you guys think of this episode, and who do you think might be the Jedi that shows up to help save Grogu? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you can't hit that thumbs up button and like this video to really help out the channel, and if this is one of your first time checking out one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe for more and hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time. Say bye, Grogu.